Hey guys, Marsenkin here, bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so today we're going to be doing the team building guide for the TEQ Exchange BUU EZA. This comes out in a few hours time over on both Global and JP. By the time this video goes up, it's going to be, about just under 5 hours when this EZA comes out. Normally I would do the team building guide a little bit early, but what with this coming out on both versions at the same time, it's not like, you know, when I do the ones for Global where we already know all the details because it's already come out on JP. We had to wait for the data download to get the info about the weakness category, and we've only just gotten the data download, which of course came with it the news of the TEQ Ultima Gohan EZA. I've done a video going over his details, so if for some reason you haven't seen that yet, do go ahead and check that out. But this is the team building guide for TEQ Exchange BUU. I will be live for his EZA. We'll be going live about an hour before it comes out, just to go through our dailies and do some other stuff. And then we'll be going through his EZA and then going to do the Rainbow Level 10 Links Showcase. Probably will record that live on the stream after we've actually finished beating the EZA stages. So do come out to the stream and check that out. So it's a typical 30-stage EZA. The weakness category is time limit. As you can see, starts off as just the Fat BUU. Eventually becomes the actual TUR, like Exchange, the evil. I think the card itself is still like the enemy you're fighting is still Fat BUU. Then once you get to stage 20, it becomes Evil BUU. And then stage 25 onwards, it becomes Super BUU. Of course, you can go past stage 30 to get Hercule medals and stuff like that. The important thing to note, of course, is when we get to the later stages, which things are getting the damage reduction. So Super STR, and then Extreme AGL, TEQ, STR, and Physical. So basically, the only units that you want to be using are Super, AGL, TEQ, INT, and Physical, and then Super, Extreme INT can still be used. Everything else does very little damage. Now, that means you can still use these units, like you can still use Super STR, they just won't do a lot of damage. So if you have to use them for defensive options, then you still can, but they're just not going to do a lot of damage. So ideally, you do want to stick to time limit. We won't be mentioning really any characters of these typings in the actual main team building guide, but at the end, when we sort of have a quick re-scan over the category, we could mention some ones that could be decent defensively. So time limit is going to be the category. It's not the biggest category in the world. It's an interesting category that does encompass a bunch of both Fusion and Potara characters, as well as some Super Saiyan 3s and things like that. So there are a few different options for how you will be able to build this team. As always with my team building guides, I'll be going through my top picks and honourable mentions for building a team to beat this event as easily as possible. If there are any units that I miss out or you think I should have talked more about, do let me know down below in the comment section. And of course, if you do find the guide helpful at all, do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, we're going to start off, obviously, the actual main sort of banner leader for the category is this LR EZA TEQ Goku and Vegeta that fuse into Gogeta. They lead Time Limit or Connected Hope for 3 key, HP 130 and Attack and Defense 170. Using a leader, of course, that has just the straight up time limit category gives you that more freedom, so you can bring any of the units on the category on the team and you know that they're going to be getting the leader skill. I don't think they are the #1 go-to leader for the team, of course, because they have 130 to HP and then 170 attack and defense. They themselves are a little bit of an outdated unit. Not that that matters for Extreme Z battles because they're not particularly hard. So these guys will be a good lead if you want to bring any of the characters on the category without having to worry about them fitting under the umbrella of like a different leader skill. So you're probably not going to really see their fusion. HP 70% or more starting from turn 4. I mean, EZAs usually end before then or on turn 4. Unless you are having to run a slightly less powerful team. Maybe the later stages you can get to turn 4 and even 5. But you're not likely to see these guys fuse very often. If you do, then of course the Scouter ability and everything can certainly be useful, but I wouldn't expect to see Gogeta come out very often. So in terms of other leaders, we have characters like the LR Blue Boys from the Worldwide Celebration. They lead Battle of Fate, Future Saga, or Power Beyond Super Saiyan. So a lot of the characters that we talk about in this guide are on these categories. So these guys not only have a full 170 to those stats, but of course they give an extra 30% to Realm of Gods or Time Travelers. So you can build a team that has a decent number of units on the 200% leader skill. These guys, of course, despite being AGL, having type disadvantage, they're very good defensively in slot 1. They can guard, they have dodge. They're, as we said with the turns that EZAs normally go on for, they're probably not going to run out of their guard and become a liability at any point during the event. So very, very good unit to have as the leader, or solid unit to have on the team. Can hold down slot 1 and be very good defensively all throughout the event. Very unlikely to see Vegito come out because, of course, starting from their 5th turn, so if they're on turn 2 or even in slot 7, like, you're never going to see Vegito Blue come out. But they'll be a solid cornerstone for the team, good slot 1 defender. So these guys will make a very, very good leader for the team as well. Then we have the LR Super Saiyan 4s from the 7th anniversary. These guys lead fused fighters, so obviously a lot of the time limit characters are fusion or Potara, so they'll fit under this leader skill. I don't think there's any GT Heroes characters that aren't fusions that would be on time limit, so they also give the extra 30% to Kamehameha, which a lot of these characters do fit under. These guys, whilst they're old for current meta stuff, they'll still be perfectly good for EZAs. They have guard on the first turn, they're raising attack and defense on both of their super attacks. They get crit chance from rainbow orbs. They obviously get the additional super if you get 20 key, and attacks effective against all types when you get 24. So they can still actually do a pretty reasonable amount of damage as well in an Extreme Z battle. Of course, 4 turns to transform into Gogeta, so you may be able to get that. Turn 4 could be like the finish turn where you fuse into Gogeta and he just finishes off the enemy. But these guys can make a very solid leader and can be a decent unit to have on the team as well. We also have, if you're on JP, because of course this EZA comes out on both versions at the same time, we have the LR Gogeta from part 1 of the anniversary. He leads movie heroes for 3 key and 200%. So there are enough movie heroes to make a full time limit team under his leader skill. Best bet though, he's not the go-to leader, right? So if you're on JP, if you have this guy, he's obviously going to be a fantastic unit to actually use on the team. He just probably isn't the go-to option for the leader, but he of course can go absolutely crazy, has attacks effective against all types, has guard for 3 turns, gets tons of extra key, gets additional supers. As long as you pick up a single rainbow orb, he's getting another additional. Like, this guy can just go absolutely crazy. He can transform on turn 4, which, as we've already said, could essentially be the final turn. So you can just go out like all guns blazing on turn 4 and be ending the event even in the later stages. So this guy, of course, being one of the bear units in the game, is a go-to character if you're on JP and you have this guy. So very good. Then we have our boy. We got to get, we got to get the heroes agenda in wherever we can. Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4 Vegito. Now this guy is a heroes leader, of course, but he also leads fused fighters as his secondary. So this guy absolutely could be a good leader for this. You can indeed build a full heroes team of time limit characters, which I might actually do, but is actually good anyway. Like, it's one of those things, I'm not going to just do it for the agenda, but then it makes the event a lot harder on yourself. This, the heroes team would actually be very good. Limit Breaker Vegito himself, as we know, is crazy. If he's got Super Saiyan 4 Vegito on turn 1 with him, he can be throwing out 14 million attack stats on turn 1. He has the ability to get crits just built in. So in the early stages, even probably up to like stage 15 maybe, the whole first half of the Extreme Z battle event, you could probably one turn if you have Limit Breaker Vegito and Super Saiyan 4 Vegito on the starting turn. So this guy, definitely a very solid option. He does want to have Giant 8 power or crossover allies as his rotation, so he's not a unit that you can kind of just drop into a time limit team if you're running, say, the TEQ LR Gogeta lead and a bunch of fusions, but he can certainly be very good in the right team setup. And of course, we have the LR Gods from the 7th anniversary as well. Whilst their leader skill isn't as comprehensive as the Super Saiyan 4s, because they literally have fused fighters, these guys have power beyond Super Saiyan or movie heroes. So that encompasses a lot of the characters that we will talk about in this guide. So these guys can be a very, very good option as well, for the same reason as the Super Saiyan 4s. Obviously, they're very similar units, so these guys can be very good as well. We have the new Goku. So the new Goku is time limit's only one of his plus 30%, but he has Majin Buu Saga, Other World Warriors, or Accelerated Battle, and a lot of the characters that we've talked about are on those categories. So this guy could be a decent leader. Obviously, if you're running the right other unit as the leader, he can be good on the team as well. It kind of depends on your team build, whether this guy will be a relevant leader or not. But if he's not the leader, he can still be very good on the team. He does have type disadvantage, but he's not super AGL doesn't get the damage reduction thing, the 80%, so he can still do decent damage. He has built-in crit chance, so it doesn't really matter that he's got type disadvantage if he's getting crits. He does need a BUU Saga ally on rotation to get all of his buffs, but there are a couple of those that we will talk about, so he can certainly be very, very good if you have him. They often do that, right, with these Extreme Z battles that come out as the first major one of the event, where having the new units is a benefit. Although I think for this guy, it's not as much of a go-to, right? Like, it's not his category. Even though he has it as one of his plus 30%, it's not like his major category that is the weakness. But he can certainly be very, very good on the team as well. Then we have this guy. I meant to put him next to the Limit Breaker for Geo, but of course this guy, if you wanted to go the full Heroes route and you didn't have Limit Breaker for Geo, you can still run this guy as your leader with crossover 180, have a Limit Breaker for Geo friend, and then of course build the team that way. I probably wouldn't do it that way. I'd use this guy, of course, if we're using Limit Breaker Super Saiyan 4 for Geo, because as I say, you can make a full Heroes team. This guy just juices up all the Heroes units, massively buffs up LR Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, but he does support Giant 8 power and crossover, so even if you're using like the LR Super Saiyan 4s from the 7th anniversary, this guy is a good support for them, shares links with them like Saiyan Raw. So obviously can be a very good unit to have on the team with them. Even if you're not running Limit Breaker for Geo or any other Heroes units, this guy can be good on the team if you're running the LR Super Saiyan 4s. So he's a good one to consider. Then we have TEQ Gotenks. So this guy only realistically is here on the list for the JP players because of course he has his Super EZA. Him with his Super EZA will be really, really good. Works really well with the AGL Goku. But yeah, straight up a very good unit to use for JP only, of course. But yeah, this guy can do a ton of damage. You can very easily blitz through the early stages with him. Sadly, a JP exclusive for now, because on Global, without his Super EZA, definitely not worth running on the team. But yeah, for JP, this guy is definitely a top tier option as well. And of course, we have the Int Gotenks. He is probably on both versions, despite not having the best leader skill. Once you've picked your leader, I would say he probably is the #1 go-to unit to run on the team, right? Because he has type advantage. Gotenks is very, very good. He starts off in base, which is still very decent, and then of course straight away on the next turn transforms into Super Saiyan Gotenks. We're not going to be seeing Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks at all during this event, but the Super Saiyan Gotenks will be very powerful, does decent damage, has the dodge chance and everything, so he will certainly be very, very good. So he is the #1 unit. You pick your leader and then you put Int Gotenks on the team if you have him. There's no reason not to run him. He's going to be very, very good. Next up, we have the Int Super Saiyan 3 Xeno, the Gohanks. There's a couple of Heroes units I wanted to mention, obviously because this guy's Int. He's a Super Saiyan 3, so he fits in with some of the other characters we've mentioned already in terms of like the Super Saiyan 3 links and things like that. But in terms of the Heroes build, he's another unit who is Int. He gets a guaranteed additional super if there's another Dragon Ball Heroes ally in the same turn. So he's able to do multiple supers in one turn, builds up with those supers, and of course he does have type advantage. And then there is his sort of partner, his counterpart, the AGL Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. Both of these guys are getting EZAs this year with the Heroes Celebration, but of course that's not until November. He's the same, basically, just does the same thing. Builds up by getting his attacks off, gets a guaranteed additional if there's a Heroes ally on the rotation. He does have type disadvantage, so you could potentially have like the Gohanks on rotation and have this guy floating, but he can certainly be very good. Links up with the other Super Saiyan 3s like Goku or the TEQ Gotenks if you are on JP, so those guys can be a solid option for the team as well. Then we have the physical Gotenks, who is the banner unit for the Goku. So if you summoned for the Goku, even if you didn't get him, then obviously potentially you'll have been able to pull this guy. He is a very, very solid unit. Can launch a bunch of additionals, has a 70% chance to dodge, builds up crit chance, so he can be a very, very good unit. Now remember, with Extreme Z battles, you can only use one character that has like the same name, right? You can't use multiple characters. So if you're going to run the Int Gotenks, you can't run this guy. And it should probably go without saying that the Int Gotenks is better than this guy. I mean, once this guy's built up, he's probably better than like the turn 1 base Gotenks, but by the time base Gotenks has transformed into Super Saiyan Gotenks on the next turn, for this event specifically, especially with type advantage, the Int Dokkan Fest Gotenks is going to be better. So this guy's only really going to see use if you don't have the Int one. I think a lot of players, unless you're new, you probably have the Int 1 and Easy Aid more likely than you have this guy, even if you did summon for Goku. So this guy's more of an honorable mention because you're going to want to run the Int 1 over this guy 100%, right? Then we have this free-to-play Super Saiyan 3 Angel Goku that got his Easy A. I thought I'd mention him as a nice little free-to-play option. Obviously, you can't use him and the new AGL Goku, but I'm sure a lot of people either didn't summon or just didn't get the AGL Goku. So this guy can be a decent free-to-play option, especially with some of the other Super Saiyan 3 characters that we've talked about already. So just having another Super Saiyan 3 character on the team with those links and everything can certainly be very useful. If you're at 60% or more HP at the start of the turn, he does have a 60% chance to dodge. His defense after supering is decent for a free-to-play character, so for something like an Easy A, he will still be perfectly fine, right? It's not like this is the new hardest red zone stage or anything, so maybe if he gets tagged by a super in the later stages, he could take a lot of damage, but otherwise he should be pretty good as a free-to-play option. And then last but not least, I wanted to mention this guy. I don't know how he ended up all the way at the end. We probably should have mentioned him earlier. Final Trump Card or Patara. You could probably make a team out of that lead as well. But this guy, obviously very decent. You can put him in slot 3, get the dodge chance, and then he'll come back on turn 4, transform into Vegito Blue, have a 100% chance to dodge. And as we've mentioned with other units already a few times during this guide, turn 4 potentially going to be the last turn. Him coming in having 100% dodge, you could just put him in slot 1, get a bunch of additional attacks off, do a lot of damage without any worry of you taking damage yourself. So this guy definitely a top pick for the team. So if we go back to time limit, we didn't mention the AGL Super Saiyan Gotenks. He's a time limit support unit, and obviously on JP he does have an Easy A. So to be fair, for JP, he's probably a worthwhile consideration for a support unit for the team. Global, I mean, he still is supporting time limit, but he doesn't have his Easy A, so he's a bit on the weaker side, especially having type disadvantage in this event, but you certainly could use him to support the team. I didn't mention the STR guys because, of course, they get their damage massively nerfed, so they're not very useful. And, of course, Angel Vegeta and the old LR Gogeta are pretty outdated at this point. Tech units, we've got like Tech Vegito Blue, could still be decent, get a few attacks off. He's obviously outdated now, but for an Easy A, he could certainly fire off a few attacks and do some decent damage. The Tech, I should have mentioned Tech or Int Super Saiyan 4. In fact, I thought I'd open Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, the Int one. Either of the Super Saiyan 4 Gogetas. The Int one, despite being older and not having his Easy A, well, I say older. The Tech one was older, of course, but got an Easy A since, right? The newest Super Saiyan 4 out of these two is the Easy A for the Tech one. The Tech one has a 70% chance to counter supers, is getting defense on super, so as long as he's not in slot 1, he can still be solid defensively. The Int one, not as good in terms of stats because he doesn't have an Easy A, but he's got type advantage, so that can balance out depending on which two of these you have with the most dupes. If you have one of them like 55% and the other one Rainbow, I'd run the Rainbow run regardless of which one it is. Then, of course, we have the adult Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks from Heroes. I didn't want to just bring up every Heroes unit, but as I say, you can make a full Heroes time limit team. You might have to run some of the STR characters as well, like the Vegex, who's an infinite stacker. So he'll be good defensively, but of course, as we've already said, STR units won't be doing a lot of damage. So it's probably not the go-to to use the STR characters. Unfortunately, Kefla, her main pull is, of course, her power, so she gets nerfed here, can't do damage. In terms of extreme characters, like, there's only really, like, the BUU, and then, yeah, like, Angel Frieza, so you're not really going to fit a lot of extreme characters onto this team. Physical Vegito Blue, I guess, could still be usable with the counters and stuff as well, although he'll definitely get rocked by supers. The STR base Gotenks is okay, but again, he has the same name. You could run the STR Super Saiyan 1, but his support and everything comes from having multiple enemies, so he's not necessarily the best option for this. There is the AGL, the other AGL Super Saiyan 1. But, I mean, I guess if you're going to run a Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, the Easy A newer AGL one is the best option for JP. But yeah, so not exactly the top pick, especially with type disadvantage. But there you go. It's not the biggest category in the world, but there certainly are some solid options on here. definitely going to throw in some Heroes ones for my build. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Like I said at the beginning, if you think there's any units I missed out or should have talked more about, do let me know down below and let us know what your team build is going to look like for the TEQ Exchange BUU Extreme Z battle down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.